So now we're going to install the middle tray, and to do that we first need to move these ribbon cables out of the way just so we can set this tray down and not have anything in the way. And we need to make sure that our IMA harness is out of the way. We need to make sure this BATSI cable is not going to get crushed by the tray. And just in general, we need to make this very open. And we're going to take our tray and put it down here, that, and we'll plug these temp sensors in. This connector, if you break it off, there's no way that I can fix it. And so I'll have to charge you for another PCB. I have 2 reminders for that here that say unplug temp sensors before removing the tray on both sides. When you see this later on, it's talking about these. So if you try to pull this tray out right now, you will just rip those pads off. So then we're going to plug in this connector here, and depending on your configuration, you're going to have either 4, 6, 7, or 9 pins, just depending on which grid charger you have and if you have the heater. This is going to plug in here, kind of reach in here with my finger below, and we're going to have to plug this in, and it takes quite a bit of force to plug it. If at any point in the future you need to unplug this, don't just rip on the harness. You'll rip these cables out. Now we're going to take a felt pad, and where this can hit the side of the case, we're going to attach a felt pad just to the wall so that it doesn't rattle. Next, we're going to take the HVAC Anderson connector and plug that in. That's just going to plug right here, and we'll just kind of leave that floating there for now. Okay, so now we're going to take the middle tray and line this up with the front hole here. And I'm going to screw one of these bolts in. This is just temporary. It doesn't matter if it's long or short. And we're going to do the same thing over here. This is just going to keep the tray in roughly the right position while we install the middle module, which is what we install first. And we're going to take the blue temp sensor now and route it around this post and just connect it here. This is measuring the grid charger temperature. So now we're going to install the middle module. The right should be on the passenger side of the car. Upper middle should be up there. And we are going to take a flashlight and we're going to shine it down in here, and we're going to look down in here until we line up all the holes. So after we get this module centered where all 4 holes look like they're going to line up, we're going to take one of these spacers here, and we're going to take the yellow temperature sensor, and we're going to wrap a layer of electric tape around like that. And then we're going to take the sensor here and we're going to tape it to this stud. And then we're going to take a long bolt with a washer on it, and we're going to stick it through. The wire side comes down like that. If you do it the other way, the top cover won't fit on. We're going to take this sensor and we're going to drop this in like that, and we are going to screw that guy in just loosely. And then for the other 3 on here, they're also going to be long bolts, and they all have a washer and a spacer. We're going to leave them loose so that everything can still move. Next, we're going to put in the front module. Before we do that, we need to remove these 2 long bolts here. So we have the upper front module we're going to install now, and we're going to just set that right here. And we need to make sure that all these cables are out of the way. From here, we will take and install this module. And once again, we'll take a flashlight, look down, make sure all the holes line up. The front 2 bolts will be long and the back ones will be short. So we'll do the 2 long ones first. Now these rear 2 ones are just going to be a washer with a short bolt. So once again, we will just get these to where they're down but loose. For a 48S install, the green temperature sensor is going to attach back here. So if you're not putting in the 5th module here, then you'll take this back off and repeat this same step there. For the 60S, where we have a 5th module, we will attach this to the post that's going to be right there. So at this point, because we're putting 60S in this car, we're going to just take the green temp sensor and just put it back up here, and we will install the rear module. So for the rear module, we're going to just set it in here. We're going to once again take and run a layer of tape around here, and then we're going to tape the temperature sensor on like so. And then once again, we're going to take a long bolt, a washer, and make it to where the wire is coming out the threaded side of this bolt. So now we'll look down through here one more time and make sure everything is lined up, and we will install this bolt and washer. We're going to do another long bolt in the back left. For the last 2 bolts, those are going to be short and a washer. Okay, now that we have all of the bolts loosely threaded in here, we're gonna tighten the 2 bolts that have temperature sensors first. So it's gonna be this one. And we need to make sure that as we tighten this standoff doesn't rotate around and break our temperature sensor. So I'm gonna just kind of hold this standoff and then tighten this. Real important note here, don't use an impact driver. You will shear the heads off these bolts. These bolts are not impact driver rated. If you're doing 48S, the second temp sensors will be here, so we'll tighten that one first. In this case, with 60S, so here's our second battery temperature sensor. We're gonna just tighten this. This is twisting around, which is what I don't want. And so if we need to, we can start with the wire more counterclockwise so that as we tighten this, it gives it room to rotate, like so. And what we don't want is we don't want to twist this temperature sensor all the way around where it gets crushed by this battery housing. So from here, we'll just tighten all the bolts. So all of our pack is installed now. We will finally just take this green sensor and just put it over there. Now we're going to take this BMS cable and we're going to plug this into 1 through 12. So make sure this says 1 through 12. Next, we're going to install the HVDC negative, which is the 1 minus. So for that, we're going to put on our gloves. And we're going to take and cut this zip tie. And this is going to say 1 minus. This is module 1. It's the upper front, so upper front minus. That is going to plug in right there. And we will tighten this all the way. We'll reinstall this cap. Next, we're going to attach the 1 positive connection, which is right here. It says 1 plus upper front. We're going to place the HVAC cable down here, get it out of the way. We're going to plug this over on top. Next, we're going to hook up the fuse cable, and it says 4 minus upper middle. That goes to fuse here. This is module 4. We're going to plug that in, and we're going to put this on, but we're going to leave this pretty loose, and that way we can plug in the 37 through 48 connector. Okay, there's our 37 through 48. And then we're going to tighten this the rest of the way here. So at this point you have 3 cables left. 2 of the cables have blue Anderson connectors, and the third one here does not. If you're using 60S, which is 5 modules, you're going to use this cable and the short cable that says 60S on it. If you only have 4 modules, which is 48S, then you're only going to install this cable. So if you're only doing 4 modules, then this 5th module is not going to be here. And so you will install this cable right here, and it will route and just plug into this connector. In this case, though, we're doing 60S. So we need to install this cable here, which says 4 plus upper middle, and then 5 minus upper rear. So we'll install that cable first, and then we'll actually just install this smaller cable here. And we're going to put this guy on now. And we'll just kind of leave it loose for a second so that we can attach this ribbon cable. And now we'll go ahead and rotate this and tighten it down. And then we'll plug in this blue Anderson connector. Now we're going to plug in the HVDC DC input here. Okay, now we're going to reinstall the HVDC ground reference here. And then we're going to install the HVDC cables, but before we put them on, we need to install this ferrite core. And so this ferrite core will go over both of these cables. It must go over both cables. Can't put it through just one. And then we'll hook the negative cable up first. And we'll get that just loosely installed. And then we'll go and hook up the positive cable here. And again, it'll stay loose. And now we need to take this ferrite, and it actually needs to be down here below the edge of the DC-DC. Otherwise, the top cover won't fit. Once we get the ferrite core down into this gap, we can go ahead and tighten these 10mm bolts. So we're going to now attach these 2 similarly named pins. One of them is the rearmost pin on the front connector. That's these two connectors. So this is the front connector and that is the rearmost pin on it. So this one is going to plug into there eventually. The other one is the frontmost pin on the rear connector. So this is the rear connector and that is the frontmost pin right there. So this one goes to the yellow black wire on this harness here. So if you look at this harness, you can see there are two black wires on the left, and then there's a yellow black wire here and a white wire. And those are the two wires we're going to attach to. So the way this connector works is it has a gray end to it. We're going to unscrew this gray end. And then this is going onto the yellow black wire. So I'm going to take this slot and I'm going to slot the wire through it. And then I'm going to rotate it back up. So it should look like that. And then I'm going to take and just screw this connector back on, like so. And you're going to screw it until the insulation on the wire is touching the red body of this housing. You don't need to over tighten it. And then this has the frontmost pin of the rear connector. So this is the frontmost pin of the rear connector. And you're going to plug this in. And then this other cable goes to the white connection, which is right there. We're going to repeat the same process. And then we're going to plug this into the rearmost pin of the front connector, which is right there.